That we're live. Good. So we're back live, and we apologize for the slight inconvenience with technology. Like I always say, we'll continue to work with it until we completely figure this out. It comes with the territory. So today, with me is my guest, Mr. Alieu, who, as I mentioned earlier, I've always admired from a distance. Alieu has been really involved in very important work back home in Africa, and particularly in the Gambia as well. He is a very strong critic of the different forms of uh, marginalization and domination and colonialism, not only in the Gambia but generally around the African continent. And I've really watched his, voice. I've really listened to him and followed his journey for a very long time. So I'm really excited to talk to him, to really explore his journey, beginning with his background and where he comes from. So to begin his conversation, Aliu, welcome to the dialectic space, and thank you for doing this conversation with me today. We'll begin with your formative stages. I know for sure you've earlier mentioned between either Gunjur or Sanyang. I think this we can safely say you are from the Kombo North area, but where
South.
specifically Combo South, my bad. Combo South, yes. Pardon me. You are from that area, but you can talk to us about your formative years, about where you come from. Also, if there is any, I mean, either conventional or non-conventional education that you underwent during those years of your formative life. Please, we'll really love to talk to you about your journey.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim, for inviting me. I mean, you've been a good friend and a brother for a long while now. And yeah, to the whole thing about like growing up, I mean, I grew up in Gunjur. I was born in Gunjur on the 3rd of May, 1992. And I grew up in Sanyang, basically. I mean, I spent a few years in Gunjur growing up. And so my namesake is from Gunjur in Job Kunda. So I'll give him a shout out. Ali Job. They call him Ali Mundao. So if you are from Gunjur, you know Ali Mundao, that's my namesake. And yeah, but then my family would move to Sanyang, and that's where I would go to school, primary school, essentially. So if there's one place I know in this world is Sanyang. Sanyang is like the center of my geographical existence. That's the place that I can be who I want to
Uh-huh.
be. Just as a footnote, it was like that's why it was very stupid when the government has arrested me recently in May, and then took me to Sanyang unknowingly, which I think we will get to at some point. But not knowing that I'm from Sanyang was the biggest mistake. Yeah, but yeah, so I went to school in Sanyang, primary school essentially, and then I would complete my primary school in 2004, and I was the head boy, and yeah,
That's crazy. I was not
it was
waiting.
I was a good student apparently until I was not a good student. Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's basically it. I mean my old man has passed away, and but my mom is still around, and she raised us, the six of us. Like I mentioned earlier, that I don't like speaking on family because I have siblings who are also they tend to be very private, and my mom also, and so I don't really divulge much about my family. But yeah, but my mom's name is Rugiatu.
That's
Yeah,
lovely. I've seen a photo of you and your mom on your Facebook.
yeah,
It's really nice. Uh, and I
yes.
think also I can safely say we share a leadership experience from primary school. I was also a head boy of Kabafida Primary
Ah,
School. Yeah, in the time, man. That's really wonderful memories. But so you raised both in Sanyang and Gunjur, fair, suffice to say,
mhm.
and then you also did your primary school. And I also know that you constantly talk about this on your Facebook, that you've not been to high school. Talk
Mhm.
to us about that.
Yeah. So the thing is, I the only thing I've ever finished is primary
Okay.
school. So when I went to junior school, I started getting very disillusioned with the schooling system, because I started reading. Um, the first book I've ever finished reading was I was in primary two. This was when we were still using primary, Sanyang Primary School. Now it's Sanyang, was it Sanyang Lower Basic School, and all of that. But when I was going to school, it was Sanyang Primary School when I started. But by the time we had got to grade six, they've changed the name, of course. So we were like the last generation um, that those things changed, like common entrance and all of those things. So we were the first batch or the second batch that didn't do common entrance, the common entrance exams. So when I went to junior school, um, um, I had already like read so much, and I started having a lot of problems with my teachers. I mean, my classmates will tell you that, and that I would rectify them, and then they get mad because they were like, "Why would this kid come and just
Yeah.
So it became like a battle of wills, if you would, and so I spent a lot of times in the library, and I was not really keen on school anymore, and Sanyang Primary School had a really good library. I don't know how that happened, but I think I can speculate on it. Is that Gambia as a tourist destination. So this most of these people, they will send containers to the school, and in there will be a lot of
Yes.
books, and they were like really advanced books for a primary school, because I remember that's where I found Anna Karenina of Leo Tolstoy, which is a huge book like that, and The Prophet of Khalil Gibran, and there was a lot of other books. And when we were in Sajjan Primary School, the headmaster was my good friend, Mr. Jame, a good man, a good man. We should celebrate him, And his office used to have a lot of books, so he would lend me books and I would read from there also. And but when I got to to junior school, I was already very disillusioned with school. I would not say that it's a combination. It's not a combination of. It's a combination of two things. I would not be sitting here and say, "Oh no, it's because I was
We're
I
ahead
was
of
a
your time. Yes.
genius." Yeah, but it was like basically I didn't like going to school. I don't think any of us who grew up from that generation really like school
True.
because, hey, the beatings. And me as a head boy in Sanya Private School, the beatings. You can ask anybody who graduated in 2004 in Sanya Private School. They'll tell you Aliu probably was the most beaten person. They used to beat me all the time because they're like, so okay, I'll backtrack as a footnote a little bit. Then I will. So my big brother was the model student. Yeah. Uh, 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 I mean, he's actually texting me now. Um, the coincidences, is asking me whether this is cancelled. But he was, the person who will wake up at 5 in the morning, pray the Fajr prayers, iron his uniform. He has a really nice afro. I feel like you
I
might know
probably
him.
do. Yeah.
Momo. Yes, and now, so all of the teachers used to tell me, why can't you be like him? And I was like, no, me, I'm who I am. And so that also was like a continuous thing that was going on, even in junior school, because he was ahead of me. And when I came, I remember the first teacher I encountered. And she was telling me, she was like, we know about you. We heard you're like very stubborn and all of that, and you know, but you just try to be like your brother. I was not trying to be like him. That's where the problem started. And I think that's one of the conversations we need to have in that country, is that people don't have to chase
Yeah.
shadows. People don't have to be the shadow of another. How the educational system it has to move away from trying to create uh, parallels within individuals to what exactly can we create? Like, can we create a new human? Because education is about creating a new human, you know. And that's the way somehow that already also affected my
That's a big man
sort
to
of
go to school. Yeah.
relationship with the schooling
Yeah.
system. But by and large, the most important thing was I got bored with school at all. Like I was not interested. I just wanted to read my books. So when I decided that I was going to quit, it was at grade eight. I was in grade eight in 2007. I stopped. Yeah, and a lot of people. So there was a lot of speculation in the country. People who knew me they were like, "Oh, this is witchcraft. This cannot be real because he gets good grades." Usually, in Gambia, people who quit school are people who don't do well with
Yeah.
school. Yeah, but I was doing well. I was a head boy. I was doing all these things, and I was having very good grades. And then I just was like, I'm not doing it. So people were like, "Oh, should we check whether it's witchcraft? Oh, it's it?" Because I already had like a few scholarships, so it was not about the money. I didn't drop out because my parents couldn't pay my school fees. That was already covered, and so basically so when I had quit in 2007, I would go tentatively. I went to school um, again because people were like forcing me. So I went to St. Teresa's. I think I lasted a week, and I was like, no. I went to BS. BS is Greater
Uh-huh.
Banjul, upper basic. Oh, like a month. I was like, ah, yeah. So this is within 2007, 2008. But primarily, I had stopped by 2007. I was done. I was just trying to appease a few people, but I was not interested at all. So my journey, my schooling system, my schooling journey ended in 2007. I was in grade eight. I dropped out willingly, voluntarily, to now study on my own, and that's what I did. And if you're familiar with me, you know that there's something very close to my heart in that to generally to study by myself and to not compromise on that level, like the bit of studies. And I even remember like when we had quit school, and I quit school, and a few of my friends have also quit school, which is actually something very what's the word? It's very
Yeah.
common in
Yeah.
Gambia that people just quit
Yeah. For
school,
different reasons.
and
Yeah.
then we
For
used to
different
be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear myself on the echo. But it is tough. But I was just gonna add that, that's a really interesting story because on the other side, flip side, for example, I've always been a school guy. I'm sure you know this. Like even at the UTG days, they come. I've
Mm,
always been
mm,
serious with
mm.
school and
Yes.
also
Yes.
been involved in various forms of social activities in school and student union activism and even outside the university as well. But school has always been very definitive of who I am. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the importance of access to information. Because when I was young, uh, contrary to what you had access to, most of what I was reading by then, I remember Alassane Cisse was the first person to give me books to read. There were not a lot of role models in my community to look at or to say, I'm going to go to this person's house. Or we had a one Brikama National Library, which was there. I barely had access to it. I didn't even know how to access it, right?
I used to go there
That's
actually when I quit
crazy.
school.
So it was
That's behind the
Yes.
governor's
So
office,
it
no?
was later,
Yeah.
and when I went to, I think grade seven, that I started going there. But the point I was trying to drive at is the fact that I think access to information, information in the sense of books, at that very early stage becomes very symbolic of what the next few years of your life. I mean, obviously not dogma, because at that early stage, you hold no presuppositions or any conceptions of anything at all. You're just trying to learn. And most of what I've read
Mm,
growing up was fictional, mostly of John Grisham, right? And that also explains why
mm.
I ultimately get into law. But my point is that yours is so incredible because I feel like it kind of also makes sense because if you have access to that really deep sort of materials at that very early on, it would make sense for you to be like, yeah, you are way ahead of your time. So you'd either class with people in your class, or teachers would look at you as though you're trying to challenge them in their classrooms.
Yeah, looking at it now, that you said that, because I remember when I was in grade seven, I've already started reading Tolstoy. And if you know Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy from Russia is one of the greatest novelists of all times, right? And these Russian writers were not just novelists. They were able to expound the human condition um, within fictional narrative.
Further,
So you're reading
further
Tolstoy.
Dostoevsky, fascinating human being.
Yes, me, I'm a
I know.
Dostoevsky man.
That's more reason why I
You know,
want to talk to
right
you,
now.
because I'm like, this guy has, like, you've been in.
So right now, I'm rereading The Possessed of
That's crazy.
Dostoevsky. You know, and the thing is, when you, but this is the thing that happened. I think for me, what happened was, um, I always wanted to know, something deeper. Like there was something that was missing, and that's why in my earlier journey, I was I got caught with religion a lot. I maybe a lot of people who know me would notice that I was with Tabligh Jamaat, which is what they call the
Yes,
Markaz
yes.
people, and for like 2 years, and I dabbled with the
Mhm.
Salafis, and now I'm Taliban by, there's an interval where I became an atheist because I was like, there's no
Yeah.
answers, and but primarily it was that I think we all gravitate to sort of the things that is important to us, even with books, because there were other books that I saw I was not interested in, but there were books that I saw, like for example, when I got exposed to Marxism, I had this book that I had stolen at a certain library that I would not mention instead, in case of
Yes.
being, you know, it's like
Yeah.
2007, yeah, 2006, 2007. It's called The Fundamentals of Marxist Leninist
Hmm.
Philosophy. And I think I still have it somewhere. Now I've started reading this book. I don't understand anything out
Yeah.
of this
Max is
book.
deep.
But somehow it's like, there's something in
Yeah.
here. I will keep trying, and then shortly after, I will meet people who would help me in that whole thing. But I was saying all of that to say is that I none of our journeys are like literally, sometimes people try to make your journey look like it's like this unique phenomenon in human history, but it's not. We are all created by our societies. We are all part of a social narrative. Of course, like kids like us who grow up like in very poor families, the idea was not that we should choose to look for knowledge instead of looking for what is considered
Yeah.
success, right? um that's there, and that's also something we must account for. But it's not strange that a kid from the ghetto or kid from a poor background would desire to understand or to unravel the meaning of existence. It is the birthright of every human being to ask those deep existential questions. And that's what happened. And it is possible for every one of us. I mean, how many geniuses have wasted in our streets, selling nana, selling water on the streets because they never had that opportunity. Even me, I mean, it was, I don't even know. Sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe it's a divine hand that has just been guiding me, because there are many places where I could have just faltered and I would just have ended up somewhere else and doing other things. But somehow, some way, things were able to shape up in my favor, and that I had access to books. I mean, it's not as simple as I'm making it now, but by and large, is that I had people who were also protective of me, who took care of me, who were able to understand my dream that I don't want to go to school, but I still want to educate myself. So, yeah, basically, I don't know.
No,
I went
no,
on a
no,
tangent.
bro.
Now I
I'm
missed it.
I'm here because in many ways, Alieu, like I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. Not in the sense of because I didn't go to school, right? I went to school. I'm a school person, like I said. Right now, I'm doing a
Mm,
dual master's, a master's in law and a master's in MPA at the University of Washington. For the last 5 years, I've
mhm,
not been to school, but I can confidently admit to you that the last 5 years have been my most intellectually transformative in a way that I've never had in my life. I have a little more slow start because I think part of what I've really experienced since I've moved here is just my interactions with the purpose of my being as a human being to wrestle with various forms of death, and that comes out of actually some of the books that I've been reading. And I see what you put online. Usually I don't I just be on the shadows. I'm like, Alieu is on really some deep intellectual shit. And I want to talk to him about his journey,
mm,
right? And I credit a lot of that to Dr. Cornel West, who is my favorite public intellectual in the United States. He's a philosopher and from Harvard University, and he calls
I've
himself
read
a
him.
revolutionary Marxist, right? And a revolutionary
Mm,
Christian
mm,
as well. He literally exposes me to Hegel. He introduces me also to Richard Wolff, who I've really come to really admire, to Chris.
Richard Wolff is one of our comrades.
So
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? But I think what
Mhm,
you have, which is really impressive, is you're not limited to just reading these great Greek and German philosophers, right? You are also deeply grounded in a tradition of Pan-African socialism, for example, which you talked about greatly.
yes.
So I want us to dive a little
Yes.
more into that too. Is what you're saying is not really in isolation for a lot of people, because I remember even those days when you would come to events and talk about just the importance of your intellectual journey and your advocacy. And sometimes society shuns you. People avoid you because they think you are basically just talking shit about the school system, which at that time I didn't
Mhm,
really understand that, what you were doing. But as I grew older, as I had access to that sort of intimate experience with knowledge and wisdom, I really understood and appreciated
mhm.
what you're doing. So talk to us about that, because after your high school, after access to all these things, you obviously went into your own intellectual journey. You had access to books. What was society's reception? Yes, people were protective of you, but I'm sure it was also the access to some of the things that you are dealing with must be hard, and people avoiding you in certain environments or situations because governments don't want people to question certain things. And you know this,
Yeah, I think so. In my formative years, it was really, really hard. I that that is like a special conversation. Like I remember many times when people who I started things with would because when I quit school and I took this path, um, would go around saying we think Aliu have mental issues. We think he's uh he's just about this weed life or what, no, whatever excuse, because I mean in their favor we were all young, but the thing is this, a lot of these people were also deeply conditioned by the ideas that are prevalent in our society. And of course we'll get to that when we talk about Marxism and all of that, but people are the product of their society. And one of the things in our society, you and I come from Gambia, you know, uh, because I could have done this, like I could have read, but I could have been very nah. But I had braids one time, and then I had, so it was not really helping my case. So I remember 2007, 2008 was one of the loneliest points of my life. I was like 14,
you're
15,
a
I
teenager.
was a kid,
Yes.
I was a baby. And I remember how people used to go to my mom is like, something is profoundly wrong here and you have to do something about it. And my mom was like, this one is too stubborn. Me, I can't do anything about it. So I'd left home, I'd moved, and I was doing my own thing. I was selling weed to buy books. I used to come to Mr. John and Timbuktu with like a lot of change because now, I was selling like $10 a box and all of that. And then I would come and it's like, he doesn't
Yeah.
understand because usually people in Timbuktu have like 100 notes and 50
Yeah.
notes. And then I will come and he will still give me discount. And Mr. Jan is someone actually who should be very celebrated in Gambia. The guy who owns with his wife, of course, Katie, at Timbuktu, and how much they have done to to keep that place alive. That is like a world class bookshop. You'll find books there that you don't even think you can ever find in that country, and it's the only bookshop in that country that is worthy of its name. And he will give me discounts. I will come and I used to go to those sections that the books are the most expensive. The Pan-Africanist, Nkrumah, Cabral, and them, they are very
Yeah.
expensive, But he will give me a discount and I will get the book. Or if I don't have enough, and then I will come, I will top up. So today, now that, okay, like I have a job and all of that, I'll go there and then I'll just buy a lot of books every time, and I still go to those sections, But it's to say that, yeah, I mean, growing up, um, questioning things, reading these books. Like I used to sit with people in the streets, in the campus and all of that, and I have a big book with me. And I'll be reading, and oh, my friends want to go to club. I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. I'm just gonna read my book. Because I had created like a very strict
Hmm.
regiment. I had this strict discipline about my reading. It was not reading for me, it was
Study.
studying.
Yeah.
See, people confuse between reading and studying. Now I will read a novel for
Mhm.
fun, just to read it. But now when I'm reading somebody like Hegel, The Phenomenology of
Think.
Spirit, or I'm reading Capital of
Hmm.
Marx, or Class Struggle in Africa of Cabra of Nkrumah, now I have to sit with that.
Wrestle with it.
These are
Wrestle
difficult
with it.
texts. I have to sit with it. Yeah, I have to
Yes.
wrestle with it. That the idea of wrestling with a text is actually very important. I know Cornel West talks about that a lot, but we'll get there,
Yes.
I guess. The, so I had to. So what I had was basically, when I wake up in the morning, I used to wake up very early, around Fajr
Mhm.
prayers, and then I will start. Now I'll pray and all of that. That's when I was religious at that time, and then I will read up to, like, let's say from 5, I will read up to 10 a.m.
You're a ferocious.
and then I will get out on the street.
Said you are
Huh?
a ferocious reader.
Yes, but you see, I was doing even more than I could have just gone to school, it would have been easier. But my regiment was even harder than the school
Yeah.
process. But at least I was not getting my ass whooped. I was not,
Yeah.
all of that. So by 10 a.m., I'll go out on the streets, hang out, look for breakfast and all of that. And at some point, it was really, really even difficult to like find food. I've written about this, and um, in like when I moved away from home, of course I was a kid. I didn't have a job. And years later, of course, I'll have a job at the Standard newspaper. But before that, so all of this is public information. You can find it. I've written, and there is someone who has done their master's thesis on my life, which is online, so you can find it. And most of these things
Yeah.
are there. And so, yeah, it was basically. I think it was very strange for Gambians that there is someone who doesn't want to go to school but still want to spend their whole time doing things
Yeah.
that people do in school. That was also a major sort of confusion for Gambians, So that's basically, and but it was really tough, and it's still tough because you see, even now, for a lot of people, they still can't sort of reconcile the fact that here is a dreadlock youth, um, who is interested in knowledge, who is interested
Yeah.
in meaning, in the idea of having a meaningful life. Because, I mean, one of the things that has happened in our society is that as long as you have something like this, as long as you smoke weed, or as long as you drink alcohol, or whatever is outside the bounds of what is considered
I
a
agree.
decent society, um, how would you even sit and think about, oh, I want some knowledge, or I want this, or want that? So it's like, it's a constant process where people are struggling with the fact that a kid like this, or a young person like this, can still have to want this lifestyle. Me, I like reggae. I'll go to the reggae club. I will do my things. I'll hang out with my friends. You'll find me hanging out at the campe with a whole bunch of dreadlock youths. Yeah, that's my life. It's not like it's something that I do because no, it's just part of my everyday life. You know, and but the problem now is how our society had created this understanding that somehow, if you want to be an intellectual, if you want to be philosophical, or you want to get into those terrains where people are supposed to uh, uh, these deep things, you're supposed to look a certain way, you're supposed to talk a certain way, you're supposed to dress a certain way. you know I mean, I'm sure even
Dude,
you, when you had
I
your
was that
piercings,
was
you had
literally
your
where I
pair
was
of
getting
it.
to, man. It's just, one thing I really admire about you, and I've always said this, even to some of my friends, is the ability to be wholly yourself. Nobody can ever be around you and say, "Oh, no, Aliu is not." No, you are unapologetically yourself, and that is important. It's growing up, I wrestle with
Yeah.
a lot of my identity, like so. And I didn't free myself until I left the Gambia, which is crazy because it should never be like that. But everybody go through a level of
Mhm.
evolution, and I've gone through that. Obviously, I'm still
Yeah.
learning.
Mhm.
And but I went through a stage where I'm
Mhm.
like, it's not in a way to be sort of society considers you as a rebel or that you're lost. People were calling my mom to say, "Oh, Ibrahim Ibrahim America, Tata America, but
Mhm.
these are people that really don't
Mhm.
understand your level of consciousness or religiosity or just
Mhm.
the different sets of
Mhm.
issues that you're wrestling with at that time as a human being.
Mhm.
Because part of our existence is that human beings, the change is constant. You're constantly finding yourself, like you said in the beginning, your society
Yeah.
and your environment, it shapes and changes you. The access to some of like
Mhm.
very deep and intellectual materials you're dealing with, they have a huge influence on you. And that's why in this country they'll say, for example, oh, if you
Mhm.
watch Fox News, you're probably going to be conservative Republican, neo-Nazi, or
Yeah.
something within those lines.
Mhm.
If you watch
Mhm.
CNN, you're probably going to
Yeah.
be a leftist, Democrat, or progressive, or something along
Mhm.
those lines. It's because access to information is so important. But yes, to your point, and that brings me to the question I really want to raise is, if, for example, you had an opportunity, which you have several times, I noticed, go to school.
Mhm.
Philosophy would ideally be the subject that I know easily that you would take. But would that be correct? If you had access to decide to
Mhm.
go to school, what area of discipline would you have embarked on?
I just realized that I didn't even answer the previous question, like being rooted in the African socialist movement, which will help to answer this question. So I am a Marxist Leninist, along, of course, with Pan Africanism, along Nkrumahist lines. Um, is that we believe that society um, is changeable, that no sort of dominant idea or mode of living is permanent or eternal. Everything has a historical basis and everything changes with time. And part of the work that I do is basically how do we create the new intellectual that understands that um, things can be changed. Nothing is changeable. You and I growing up in Gambia, at some point people are like, Gambia will just be here forever, and he's gone. Now he's just some guy who just raves on WhatsApp. Who would have thought that Jamie will
It's
be on
true.
WhatsApp audios now getting mad, So, um, that said, so that's why also Marxism teaches us to be rooted in our concrete condition. Like I cannot use the USSR as basically the basis of
The
the
vanguard.
revolution in Gambia. The revolution in Gambia, yes, the revolution in Gambia must be rooted in the context of Gambia. Gambians must decide what revolution is for them. They will have to define that word for themselves. They will have to decide what it will look like. Yeah. And what is the potent the primary contradiction of of the reality in Gambia. So, for example, if I have an opportunity to study, of course, I've had many offers to go to university. I'm not really keen on it, but I also have anxieties about the future, like everyone else. Like, it would be a good idea to have some papers, and I literally have no academic paper. I didn't complete junior school, so I don't have that grade 9 certificate. I don't have, of course, I've never been to high school. I've never been to university. So yeah, I mean, but I want to do the, like, if I am going to go to school, I want to do it because I really want to do it, and I want to do it um, on the basis that I am going to learn something new. It will help me to systematize certain things in a certain way, because of course, in my work line of work, I tend to engage with a lot of academics also, and we exchange ideas and also sometimes write together, do research together. And I can see the system that they have. It will be interesting to understand the system at that level. But I think that it's not really a necessity. It's only a necessity insofar as we are operating within this society that really value these things, And but at the end of the day, I think for me, what is most important is how can you cultivate yourself into an educated person. And being educated means to be human and to be humane, you know and going back to actually that question, what would I study? And that's one of the conundrums that we face in modern slash postmodern understanding of epistemology, or the ways of knowing. um, so you have an economist, yeah, and the economist is
Hmm.
not a political scientist,
Hmm.
and is not a historian. And you believe that that economist can do economics in society. How can you do economics in society without understanding the political history and the political nature of the society, or the historical nature of the society? So this compartmentalization of knowledge, right? So, for example, one of the big problems we face, even in the medical sector, how can you be a medical doctor and you're not a psychologist? And now, modern science is revealing more and more that most of the problems we have physically are connected to our psychological. So that's why sometimes you'll see the headaches you have, the back pains, the chronic pains you have, are actually related to the stress that you're going through in life. There's nothing to do with so they medicate you. So this split between mind and body, also this is the
Yeah.
Cartesian split that we're
Yes.
talking about, Descartes talking about I think therefore I am. So the
Hmm.
mind and body as a split. It's also found itself in our social sciences and our humanities. I mean, what historian or political scientist can you take seriously if they don't know the economics? I mean, look at Dr. Caesar, for example. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a political scientist, by the way, right? With a PhD in it. But you see, sometimes you listen to him say things and you realize that he might not necessarily even be misleading the nation, but because he's not trained in all the sectors of society that are supposed to create now what in Marxism we call
Hmm.
a totality.
He's a politician. Alieu.
Our analysis is supposed to
He's
be a
a polit-
totality, yeah?
he's a
You cannot
politician, Alieu.
even.
I'm gonna push back on that a little
Uh-huh.
bit. He's a politician. I'm not gonna take whatever he says seriously.
He is.
Exactly.
I mean, he's a politician, but I'm using him as an archetype of some of the fallacies that are existing in our society. In that sometimes people expect
Sure.
too much from these people. You know, sometimes people expect too much from our so-called intellectuals because they don't have a totalized understanding of society, or they refuse to get to that totalized understanding. Me, when I do my analysis of Gambian society, I have to look at the historical, I have to look at the political, I have to look at the cultural, the psychological, the economical, because all of these things come together and do what? That's how you get to understand society. Like, for example, The
Mhm.
debate on FGM. We know FGM is harmful, right? But there's an analysis that we're missing is that our people also have colonial anxiety. Tubabol natale fengol be tamol buli en mol be falling ye beke ye sai e mun mosifal let sai. You know, e be la fakala tubabol. Saying tolna the little culture that we have left, they even trying to take that from us. So we have to look at that colonial anxiety and how it relates to what is happening with the FGM conversation. If it was, you see, if the FGM conversation had started around advocacy rooted in our people themselves,
Mhm.
yeah, not not rooted in like some activism that came from outside, perhaps it would have been easier to tackle this. But now people, you see, every time our people get defensive, they use two tools:
Yes.
culture and religion. Why? So that means we have not done proper analysis in how we have to deal with some of these phenomena that are deeply rooted. Because our people are literally feeling like they've been attacked. Like they're missing, their culture is going. Like you look at the LGBTQ conversation in Africa, is that, oh, white people are even saying, I will give you money if you accept this. Now, our people feel like, okay, these white people, what is their problem? But when we go to our society deeply, we'll find that LGBTQ people have always existed in our society.
Since coming of
You
Islam and
know, we have
Christianity
seen
or any Abrahamic
it's
religion, it's
there.
always been there. Yes.
Yes, it's always been there. It's and our people were more tolerant then even with LGBTQ questions than now. Why? Because the ideas now, because people are looking at it like now, it's white people are superimposing. You are like forcing shit down my throat. So I'm saying all of this to say we are supposed to do proper analysis of the context at a totalized level. And one of the things that have happened with our modern education is that because of the compartmentalization of education, people don't have the ability to do a totalized analysis. Because somebody will say, me, I'm a political scientist. I don't know about economics. How can you be a political scientist without
I
knowing
think
political economy?
it's also that's an important point, but it's also the idea of credentialism and also expertise, knowledge about issues to the exclusion of others who, for example, have very little knowledge. Like for example, somebody like you, most I mean conventional
Mm.
societies would look at you and say, for example, oh, you don't have no academic qualification, you're not allowed to speak in this platform, right? And that is not only, for
Yeah,
example, in many
yeah,
societies, because which is another conversation we had, I think, last week, is our school systems are created in a way for people to get jobs. Is Cornell will always say
yeah.
is yes
To be
is
slaves.
marketized,
To be slaves.
commodified,
Mm.
and is specifically to tool and retool individuals to get a job. And so the idea of really
Yeah.
giving you deep and meaningful education where you still get a job, but you still grow that totality of knowledge that helps you to wrestle with the different forms of death and existentialism and all these different issues that has to do with your mind is one that I think a lot of societies struggle with,
Mhm.
including very advanced societies like here. Like you meet people who graduated from Ivy.
Yes, yes. But Ibrahim,
Yes,
let me interrupt you a little bit. Where you do you think your I mean, look at where our educational system
yes.
came from. It came from colonialism, right? The colonial mode of production only invented education for few things. They wanted to convert people to Christianity, at least in Gambia. So Gambia becomes a colony in the 10th of August 1889, for example, yeah. And when that's the when the Protectorate Act was passed, yeah. The meaning of education when the colonialists came was they wanted people who can translate for them. They wanted clerks. They wanted people who
Mhm.
could be the drivers. They and especially translators now because the peanut trade was important. The groundnut becomes the cash crop, which is actually a very problematic term that Gambians still use, that Africans still use cash crop, you know. But
Another time,
maybe
yeah.
we'll have a conversation about how language intersect with oppression But education was not created to create educated people. The very beginning of it was created that how can this education system help the colonial enterprise? Now, when we had our so-called independence in 1965 or 1970, we're still arguing about that. Um, we were supposed to now create a curriculum that now
Yeah.
fits the reality of Gambia. How many Gambians know? Like, for example, they tell us that even our people didn't struggle for independence.
It's,
And that's not true. There was a continuous and consistent
yes.
struggle for liberation.
Yes.
Yeah. And how many Gambians know, like, for example, uh, um, the debate about 65 and 1970 and how that is important? There's
People
a lot
don't.
of things that we don't know. No, and even look, 1981,
Mhm.
yeah, when the coup d'etat happened, that coup d'etat was fundamental in reshaping the Gambia completely, yeah, ideologically especially. But like, how many
The
Gambians can
Congo
talk to
Summit.
you about
Yeah.
1981, and what happened? So our education system was created basically. I mean, you just look at the back of any pamphlet from high school, success for WAS, right? To pass your exams. Basically, that's it. It's not even though you need to know something. It's not important for them. What is important is how can we, how can you just be a good slave? You know, you just rote learning. You just learn things, you memorize
Premeditated.
things,
Yeah.
you pass your
Yeah.
exam beautifully, university, yeah, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So that's why for me, I think I have no respect for that system, and I'm very unapologetic about it. That our people are being taken for a joyride. That we are being reduced to just so there's this paper I wrote. I'm not never published it, but I'm talking about the idea of mimicry. And mimicry in that. I mean, look at our people. They want to
Yeah.
be white so bad. They want to
Yeah.
be Western so bad. Not white, but Western. Yeah, and Babylon. But you will never be those. So you spend your whole life being a
Chat.
mimic, mimicking
Chat.
something that you will not become. And I think for me, the saddest existence is an existence of mimicry. Now, you with your mind, your body, and your soul, you have been reduced to nothing but a mimic of something you will never become. Meta
Yeah. Yeah.
video kono nyawo
I
na
mean,
anende kala
self-identity
bambut. But
problems, I think,
yeah.
is huge in our society. And I think because of just our religion and our tradition, it eschews a lot of that bit of really people understanding that there is nothing much more profound than being exactly who we are. Like, for example, this is another important discourse that we could dive into another time, but just as a point of mention, say, for example, you speak to somebody like, or you listen to somebody like Jeliba Kuyate, right? Or Lalo Keba Drame, for example,
Mm-hmm,
and say,
mm-hmm,
who
mm-hmm,
else?
mm-hmm.
Atadinding Jabate. Now, to ordinary Gambians, these are uneducated people, right? But they did not. But if
Yeah.
you listen to these individuals, Aliu, I'm so blown away by the level of wisdom and intellect at which how they able to lace, like our culture and tradition, our way of life, our knowledge in a very lyrical or musical way that continues to entertain us, educate us, right? And we just look at these people, nobody really care, but they die and we forget about them in our history. Like, for example, Lalo Keba Drame, if I want to do research in Lalo Keba Drame, for example, right? There is very little information that I could actually go and get besides, uh, besides
Yeah.
oral history, for
Yeah.
example. You probably have to go to Eurocentric university somewhere, find information about this individual
Mm-hmm.
because we don't narrate our own history. We don't value our own people. Um,
But you see, I will even tell you something. Yeah. Like, for example, I listen to Lalo Keba a lot. And I just give you just one thing he said that summarizes the human condition. Lola be mulalal.
Wait,
I mean, that's it. What Cornell will
yeah,
call the human, like from
yes,
birth to death and all of that. I don't know. I forgot the way he will
from
explain it,
womb
but
from womb to tomb.
but from womb to tomb, yeah. But now look at Lalokeba's just Lola be mulalal, which if I'm to translate to people who will not understand the language, is that anyone standing will also lie down, which is basically, I mean, translation even betrays the beauty of the of the phrase, But now look, the thing is, I used to chill with someone when I start playing those things. He used to say that uh, it's like alenye uloko na musical, like
Yep.
sin music
Yes.
ala ini hamga. Like, it's kind of it's so sad that we have reduced our like our cultural expression to, but you see, all of this relates to the colonial
No.
experience. We never healed,
Yeah.
Ibrahima. That's the fact. We never healed. Is that somebody is so happy to listen to hip hop that he doesn't even understand what is happening there. He doesn't even know what these people are saying, but then he will look cool. But if you play him Lalakeba, he will hear
Yeah.
and understand everything, but he doesn't want
Yeah.
it, you know?
Well, Ali, apparently there's somebody who says he
And
had a beef with you, but he cannot refute the fact that you're smart. That's a funny one. Smart
who is
Johnny.
that? Is that not that idiot? I don't
But
really
anyway, we're
don't
getting
mind.
into our mark, and then the last 30 minutes we'll get into your advocacy work. But with really,
I think we need to move quickly because I have
okay,
also have a lot of work to do
okay,
and it's
okay.
raining here. Yeah,
And
and I
I
have
really
to move.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But let's get into
So
your advocacy in Gambia. Recently, you involved with. I mean, we can stop at the hour mark so you can go or do other things too. Because the conversation is interesting. I could
uh,
honestly keep going talking about it.
I know.
Yeah.
But we'll do it again,
No,
I'm really enjoying this. I thought it was going to be one of those straight
no,
laced
I
interviews,
enjoyed
but
this
yeah.
dialogue. I think you have a lot to share, so we should definitely do
Mm,
it again. But yeah, we can definitely stop at definitely on the hour mark. It's 52 minutes right now. But let's get into your advocacy work with in the Gambia. Now, this is something that you've done for a long time,
mm,
and sometimes at the expense of your personal safety and liberty. You've been arrested at least few times in the Gambia
mm,
that I am aware of.
mm,
Now,
mm,
what
mm,
informs your
mm.
involvement in advocacy in Gambia? Because you could be sitting in your little quiet corner and be reading your books and enjoying, and just living your best life, but you don't.
Yep.
Anytime there is some amount of state arbitrariness, your voice is always one of the loudest, and you don't care whether it's Mandinka, Jola, so long you're Gambian or even non-Gambian. Ali
Mm,
would talk about it. What informs this advocacy?
yeah. For me, Ibrahim, is I grew up in a way that I didn't want anyone to grow up in that way. And when I got political consciousness, I realized that it is not God who made our people poor. It's not Allah. Allah has nothing to do with this. We have everything that we need. But the people who have been given the responsibility of sharing and taking care of this, the custodians of this wealth, what did they do? They just usurp it. Ibrahim, I'll tell you one of the things that really break my heart, and I think about it a lot, and I tell this to people and they laugh a lot, is there's someone at every age, you know the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, the main hospital of Gambia, there
Mhm.
was a corruption scandal. Now, let me get to the point for me that why it breaks my heart. I don't know when was the last time you've been to that hospital to see what's happening. I was there, I took someone there once, and my God, the destitute nature of that place. There were people who were sleeping on the ground because all the beds were full. Now imagine there's someone who steals money from that place and takes it home and feed his family with it. If
Yeah.
that would not break your heart, you know, I'm very mad about all the Russian oil scandal I'm mad about the stealing of James things same way. But this one,
It's
there's
not.
something about it that is so innately wicked. You know, I remember it was 2022, the last time I went to that hospital. There was this old man who was rotting somewhere and had no help. So I knew him, but I've not. So I was just casually around. I asked, how is the old man? And they're like, the old man has been sick for a while, but they've been using herbs and stuff. And so I went to see him. I was like, he was in so much pain. And I was like, nah. So we went to a private clinic, and so all of them kept referring us to Banjul. And we went to Banjul, and I think he even got better when we got to Banjul. He was like, nope, I am not going to be in this place. I swear to God. He was like, Alieu,
Mhm.
I'm going to say Suwokon. But when we were in the private clinics, he was not saying that. But imagine a sick person doesn't even want to be in that place. I mean, it was such a mess. The nurses were fighting extra hard. The doctors are fighting extra hard to just save lives. And, we really need to appreciate our doctors and nurses in that country. They work like they're they're doing so much, and they're so underappreciated. Now Aliuba will be praised, or Aliuba was arrested, Aliuba had to fought for this. But there's that one doctor and that one nurse at RVTH or in some remote village in a health center. They get no praise, they get no love, you know. But these are the people, these are the real heroes in our society. They are the teachers, those civil servants who never get the loot, because the loot, now you see RVTH, yeah, the hospital in Banjul is completely useless without doctors and nurses. But who gets all the lion's share of the money?
Mhm.
The administrators. They're the ones who get that money. And what do? They go and do whatever they want with it. They feed their family with it. They send their kids to Europe and America to study. Yeah. Our people, on the other hand, the doctors and nurses, and this most of them, you have to remember, come from those poor backgrounds, but they cannot even take care of their own. So for me, my activism was born out of that. And I'm very clear about that. And you see, for example, somebody saying I used to have beef with Aliuba in 2018. The beef was the UDP then was supporting Barrow. And when we started Occupy Westfield, this Mark, for example, concocted a whole story that doesn't exist about my life, that I'm from Guinea Conakry, I'm a foreigner,
Mhm.
just to support Barrow, for example. Yeah. I've never wavered. I stayed true. NAWEC is a problem for every
Mhm.
fucking Gambian. Excuse my language. Whether you're UDP, whether you are NRP, whatever, NPP, whatever parties, PDIS, whether you are Jola, Mandinka, whatever. Fuller, if the light goes off, it doesn't care whether you are this tribe or you're this party or you're from this region, right? So my advocacy has actually been very clear, you know. It has been very clear is that we, unless we win the basic bare necessities of life, we have no business in arguing about this little nonsense. Oh, all your political leaders, literally every body leading a party in that country, if it's a party that has any sort of consequence and importance in that country, they are not poor, they're not suffering, they're not thinking about where their next meal will come from. You can name me one. I will wait. There's none. All of them have a home they call home, that, they have nice food they can eat. The kids are going to school, or they have gone to school and they are doing well. And now you have these poor people, these suffering people, and you pit them against each other just for your benefit. And you think we should be all right with that? Me, I never cared about these politicians. I have no beef with any politician in that country. I have a beef with people who think it is their province and it's their birthright to steal from those people and to degrade them and to lie to them and then make lying to the people and cheating on the people a normal thing. That's what the conversation is in Gambia, no? that a politician, oh, politicians are always lying. Yeah, you can do yellow for a money. They never keep their promise. And then what happens? Do you come and vote for them? You know why? The Gambian people have never, people would say, oh, it is the people who are the problem. There's a book, the title
Yeah.
is A Dictator Is Us. I don't
Alaji,
agree with
Alaji
it.
Barroso.
You know, as a as a matter of principle, I don't agree with that title, because the thing is, the masses have never betrayed the political class. It's the political class that has betrayed the people continuously. Now you come to the people and say, this is a republic. Yeah, you have a constitution, and if you want to change power, you have to go
Hmm.
through this route. And what is that route? That they have to vote every 5 years, and they did it consistently. And they believe in these people. When people vote for Barrow or for Yaya Jame or for Hussein Dabo or for Aliva Saleh, they believe
Hmm.
in them. That's why they're voting for them. Of course, we know it's not always belief, because some people will vote on the basis of tribe or religion or region, all of that. But a lot of people vote because they believe that, oh, so and so will do this. Even if you look at the conversation around changing the system, people will say, oh, the opposition need to build a coalition, right? So they're still operating within the bounds of what is agreeable for them
Hmm.
to change the system. So they've been loyal to that system. And now, I don't think they're the ones who betrayed the people. It's the people that they believe are the ones who could change the system who have betrayed the people. I think we need to be
Hmm.
very clear about that. It's not the people who are betraying themselves. I mean, there is that amount. So
Yeah.
it's a dialectical thing, yeah. Contradiction is very dialectical. If there's a contradiction, and without contradiction, of
Hmm.
course, we know society can't move. There's a contradiction of that the people can betray themselves, and but also we must not exonerate
Yes.
the political
Absolutely.
class. So basically, to close it off, is that for me, my activism is about land, bread, and water. It's about how Gambia can leave the realm of necessity. The realm of necessity is a concept that was
Hmm.
developed by Frederick Engels,
Marxist.
who was
Marxist
a
friend.
close
Right.
friend of Karl Marx, and yes. And he says the realm of necessity is why we struggle. The realm of necessity is
Hmm.
basically the place of necessity. As long as a society people are still struggling for shelter, food, the basic things of life, they're still in the realm of necessity. And as long as we are at that point, how can we talk about having a sophisticated university? How can we talk about having all these other things? We don't even have food to eat. You want people to talk about
Materialism.
democracy? Yeah. So how do we move? For me, it's that's the basic struggle. Is how does Gambia move away from the realm of necessity to a place where people can find food to eat. You don't have to worry. You wake up in the morning as a parent. You're not worried that, oh, it's raining a lot. Maybe my house will go with the rain.
Hmm.
Nabungo boy, nabangubu. You know, it, me, I lived in a house where half of the house went with the rain. So me, I'm not fucking about. Me, I'm not here to appease any political sensibilities. Me, I want those people who, when they're sleeping at night, they're worried about the house will go. That's what I don't want anyone to worry about. I want a society where you can have a house where you enjoy the rain at night when you're sleeping. That's what I want. I want that no Gambian will go to sleep worried about how would I feed my babies tomorrow. So people can do all their politicking and all of that. But if we don't are not sincere about this bit, then we're not doing anything. So yeah, I'm getting a bit too passionate. This is very passionate. Me, my activism
Alieu,
is very
Alieu.
personal
I
to
know
me
it's
here.
profound.
So yeah,
In
yes.
Trust me, bro. I Everything you're saying in that respect, I completely agree with you. And I'm going to wrap this up with a call to action. Now, part of really my favorite intellectual, still public intellectual, Cornell will always say that he is a victim of hope. He is not hopeful, neither is he an optimist, but he has courage. And courage is
Mm,
what keeps him going.
mm,
Courage to stand on the truth, even if nobody else stands with you, even if nobody else is watching, even if nobody else cares. What is your courage? What is, I guess, in a way, I'm going to ask you, if what is your call to action in respect to life and the country we all care about deeply?
This just basically to reiterate what I just said earlier is that Gambians have to come to the realization that, for me, what really is the thing is, as long as you are a youth in that country, as long as you're an old person or disabled, as long as you're a Gambian, yeah, the one thing that should move you, it's very easy. Just walk around your neighborhood for 5 minutes, not even 10 minutes, just 5 minutes. And you will see something that will make you realize that we have to change things. And but most importantly for me is to have unconditional love for all those who are unloved by power, all those who
That,
are pushed
that's
out by
deep.
power, all those who are unhoused by power. That is it. You see, love of you see, we think, and you see, Ibrahim, I just want to say this
Mhm.
by way of a footnote. You see how power is violent. Powerlessness is also violent. Our people have survived some of the most violent episodes of powerlessness, in that little country and on the continent. And I think we should get to that point where we really have to now, we have to move beyond this sentimental attachment to our tribes and our political parties and to whatever, and look at things critically. Gambia has enough to feed every Gambian. Gambia has enough to take care of every Gambian, and even people who are not Gambian. That's where we should be looking at. Once we are able to lock that down, now we can come back to our conversations about diversity. Oh, me, I don't like Fullers, me, I don't like Mandinkas. That's fine. When we are all
Yeah.
chilling in a nice house, we can have that. That's not a problem. No, who cares? I'm chilling. If you don't like me, I'm still chilling. But at this point, we can't afford that. We have to build a united front of the most powerless, the most disrespected, because the powerless, the poor are the most
Proletariat.
disrespected. Yes. No, even beyond the proletariat, the lumpenized masses, the ones who don't even have the
Mhm.
dignity of being a proletariat.
Yeah.
A proletariat is the working class. These people don't even have the dignity of being part of the proletariat. They're jobless, they're wealthless. And so I feel for me is to summarize all of it in one space is the power of the people belongs to those who are rejected and unloved and unhoused by power. And as long as we show that unconditional love, and this love is not some sentimental love, this is love rooted in the concrete condition of our society, an unconditional love towards all those who are pushed out, rejected, and unloved by power, then we will begin a journey into a radiant society.
Well, thank you so much, Aliu. I think I have enjoyed this conversation. I hope all of you have enjoyed this conversation too. This has been extremely enlightening and really very moving for me in many ways. And I would really like to thank and acknowledge your time and really appreciate you coming on and having this little over an hour conversation with me. But I hope you can come back. I really would love to talk to you more for us to explore Pan African socialism, which I know you're really passionate about, and uh, I think you and I have a lot to talk
Yes.
about. That just to put it more. Yes,
I'll
yeah,
be a
yeah,
recurring, and also, of course, the dialectic space has to go beyond Gambia. Like right now, I'm
yeah.
in Nairobi, in Kenya, and there's a lot of intelligent people across the continent who should be on here, because I feel like Gambians also, one of the things is there's this
Hmm.
deep lack of exposure, you know. And I think this also can be a space where we can bring our comrades from across the continent, you know, and then, we can, they can, be part of this and to contribute to that conversation of moving Gambia away from that parochialism and this provincialist
True.
mindset. But yeah, I'll be back. We have not even talked
Yeah.
about Marxism or the
We've,
name dialectic
I know
itself,
we've
which is
only,
so
you
important for
know,
me. Yes.
by way of party, yes,
We
yes,
scrape the
yes, just on the
surface.
periphery, but we'll
Mm.
go deeper into it as well. But I really
Mm.
appreciate you, man, and thank you for your time. And I look forward to having this
Bless.
conversation again.
Bless. Baraka. Kita membarin nanti. Oto yala
Ah,
badi ya
emotion ya
kay
ba?